Hello, good people. Welcome to Raw Vegan Rising. My name is Shane Sterling. So, I gave up coffee for 2 weeks. This is what happened. So, to tell this story, I have to go back in time a little bit to my late 20s. I got a job working in a coffee roastery, and I was handling coffee beans every day. And I would get the oils on my hands just naturally in the process of what my job was. And because I was in a roastery, a really good, high-quality coffee roastery, I would drink coffee as well. In the day, I'd get there early in the morning, and I'd have a cup of coffee like anybody. And we had such good coffee, and we would do cuppings and taste the coffee and the whole 9 yards, right? So I was immersed in the coffee culture for a couple of years. But that led me to get kind of like I believe it was like a caffeine toxicity or adrenal burnout or something. Just the overload of caffeine in my system from working that job really worked a number on me. And in my late 20s, I became so highly sensitive to caffeine at that point, I tried to stop. In fact, that was the first time I ever tried to go raw, 100% raw, was when I was working at that coffee roastery. And I think I knew intuitively about needing to reset my adrenal glands or needing to reset, my health overall, because I was feeling this like adrenal burnout, this, I don't know, it's hard to describe. It was like, I could just tell in my body that I was having reactions after enough time to this caffeine. So I quit that job and moved on, and I struggled over the course of years, to give up caffeine. And after that time, I went to green tea. The years following working in that roastery, I denounced coffee. I said, I'm going to give up coffee completely. And I went to green tea, and I drank green tea every day. And I'd make it in a French press. I'd put the loose green tea leaves in the French press, and I'd press it down, and I'd drink like a pot of green tea every day, like 2-3 cups. Well, I was thinking good green tea is good for you, and and I would do that in an attempt to get away from ultimately the coffee and the caffeine addiction. And trying to go raw was an attempt to get away from the caffeine and the caffeine addiction. I went back to cook food at that time. I couldn't handle like the emotional reality of staying 100% raw at that time in my life in my late 20s. And over the course of years, I've struggled to come off of caffeine. And I drank peppermint tea for a long time, trying to get off of the caffeine. But I'd always go back to mate, less caffeine, more healthy. And then, I'd have that cup of coffee on the weekend or something because my wife would be making it, or we'd be in a cafe and I'd be smelling it, right? So I always struggled with staying off of the coffee and the caffeine. But just a few years ago, I was going on trips to San Diego. I live in Northern California, and we'd be flying into Southern California regularly for trips, me and my wife, for business trips, and we'd be staying in hotels. And I started to notice how my caffeine addiction was limiting me, because I would wake up in the morning, we'd have to be at these business workshops early in the morning, right? And I would have to have caffeine, and I'd have to drink the shitty coffee in the hotel room. Excuse my French. And it was this time, about 3 years ago, where I really started to notice how I would rely on this crappy coffee water, trying to get some sort of high off of it so I could start my day, so I could feel prepared for my day. And I started to really think, wow, I'm really limited by this. Like, what if I don't have this crappy caffeine water? Then what am I going to do? I'm going to be struggling for energy. And all the meanwhile, I'm thinking, boy, I gotta kick caffeine. Wouldn't it be amazing to be free of caffeine, where I could pop out of bed in the morning and be energized and ready for my day? And at one of those workshops, I remember sitting down at the bar with a group of friends, and we were talking, and I was having a glass of Prosecco, and I've since kicked all stimulants in my life, including alcohol. But I was having a glass of Prosecco, and we were talking about goals for our life, I believe. And it was my turn to share. And I declared at that time that I was going to go 100% caffeine free in my life. I declared it. And it took me probably another year before I was really ready to do it. I kept thinking how, it's inconsequential, it's not going to really make a difference. But eventually I decided to take it on. About 2 years ago, I decided to take on quitting caffeine completely altogether. Coffee, tea, mate, every single form of caffeine. And I did it at first with peppermint tea. I just said, hey, cold turkey, flip the switch. I'm going to only drink peppermint tea. And it worked. I did it. I drank peppermint tea for about a year. And I'll tell you, here's the thing. Here's what really, really happened in my life. Okay? Here's what happened. When I quit caffeine, little by little, slowly but surely, over the course of a year, it started to open up other possibilities. I actually quit alcohol soon thereafter. I'd still have a glass of wine or something here and there, thinking it was inconsequential. But breaking the loop of caffeine started to break down the loops of all my other addictions. So I said, okay, I'm ready to give up alcohol. And then the miracle started to happen. Then I was like, well, wait, why don't I give up sugar? Why don't I give up all processed flour and grain? And then I was like, well, wait, while I'm at it, why don't I try going raw again? A throwback to all the way when I was in my 20s. Why don't I go raw again? Well, this time I took on raw food for real. I educated myself, I researched, I found mentors, I found people that I looked up to who had been way farther along on the journey than me. Like we're talking 20 years, 30 years, 40 years, people who have spent most of their life on 100% raw vegan diet. And the caffeine, breaking the addiction to caffeine really helped me break the addictions to cooked food. And that's the magic. That's what happened when I kicked caffeine, is it broke down all of the other reliances on other addictions that I had. Now, I believe that caffeine keeps us in a dependent loop in our mind. It keeps us looped into who we think we are, what our problems are, and all of the limiting beliefs and habits that we have. So if we have an alcohol habit, if we have a tobacco habit, if we have a sugar habit, if we have a junk food habit, if we have a bad thinking habit, if we have a fear and self-doubt habit, if we have a habit of not exercising, if we have a habit of being mean or angry toward others, all of these habits are tied to all of our other habits. So when we face our biggest, deepest habits, which are really our fears of letting go, we can start to unravel all of the addictions and all of the cycles that keep us limited. So caffeine, I just know, is a huge one for a lot of people. It was a huge one in my life, and it was a threshold. It was a gateway that led me to healing my entire being, my emotional self. I had an emotional detoxification off of my addictions and off of these loops that I was stuck in. I had basically a healing crisis when I went on to raw food. I had 3 to 6 months of my life where I was in a breakdown process. I started to have, the detox symptoms come up and out of my body, which was like physical illness. And I lost a lot of weight. I looked pretty gaunt. And I was like crying every day, to be honest, crying every day, coming off of caffeine, coming off of sugar, coming off of alcohol, coming off of grains, and coming off of cooked food, finally coming off of cooked legumes, cooked starches, Really, all of this started to open me up so deeply emotionally that I was crying at the drop of a hat. I mean, literally, my wife would just say something. I'd be in conversation with my wife and I'd tear up about stuff. It was so irrational seeming at the time. And everything felt so sensitive and big. Like just the world was so big at that time. But it was an emotional healing. It was an emotional detoxification process that I went through. And it was profound. And I'll tell you, I thank God every single day of my life. When I look out at humanity, when I go out into the world, when I go grocery shopping, or I go to sit down at a restaurant with my family, and I look around at the state of where people are at, I am so thankful that I have had the epiphany, I've had the blessing bestowed upon me to have the realization of kicking stimulants and caffeine and coffee and cooked food in my life, because it gives me so much emotional stability. It gives me so much to be thankful for. It gives me so much strength. And really, I can rely on myself. I know who I am. I'm not subject to my fears. I'm not subject to my addictions and the loops of habits that keep me in the same thinking. And I've had profound breakthroughs in my life. And that's what it really all comes down to, is if you can kick your bad habits, you can have extreme and profound breakthroughs in your life that lead you to the next level of your destiny. You know, whatever that would look like for you. That could be making more money, having more love relationships, having better love relationships, having more meaningful relationships, having more success, having more impact, having more of a voice, having more of a say in your life, having more control, and having more beauty in your life, you know? Seeing the beauty in more things and having the beauty reflected back to you, because what we give is what we get. How we resonate in the world is what we attract to us. And we're going to attract more beauty, more success, and more love when we're resonating on those levels. And I believe the gateway through our addictions and through our limiting belief systems and habits is how we get there. So that's what happened to me when I quit coffee. So I hope you appreciate this message. I hope it's meaningful and helpful for someone. Thank you so much for being here on this video. Please subscribe to my channel. I'd appreciate it very much. Leave a comment, give it a thumbs up, and I will see you in the next one. Let's understand what real energy comes from. Real energy comes from water in the body, proper hydration in our body. We're chronically dehydrated from our cooked food diets, and we don't understand how much water our body really needs. When we eat a diet high in raw fruits and vegetables, we get adequate water. We get adequate fiber, and the fiber holds the water in our GI tract, so it retains the water in our body so we can utilize it. The minerals in the water, the minerals coming from the fruits and the greens, allow our body to utilize every metabolic function. It fires our neurotransmitters, it fires our metabolism, it fires our endocrine system. The minerals are used in every metabolic process in our body. When we eat cooked food diets, we're eating mineral deficient foods. So we have to eat the raw fruits and vegetables high in water, high in fiber, and high in minerals to have adequate energy. Also, when we give up the cooked food, we're standing naked in the wind. We're divulging our deepest, darkest secrets to the universe, to God, to our Creator. When we stand with no addictions, when we stand with nothing to hide behind, no sugar, no caffeine, no alcohol, no cooked fats, no cooked starches, we are simply babes, you know. Our souls are laid out for all to see. We are really vulnerable but strong. It is how we are designed to be in God's vision of who we are. You know, this is the highest potential for humanity, is not relying on our addictions, not relying on cooked food, but rather being vulnerable and being strong and being naked in the wind. That is who we are meant to be.